In the days of hashtag #MeToo and hashtag #NoMeansNo and politicians and media moguls dropping left and right for sexual coercion, consent has taken center stage as the indispensable prerequisite for mutual action, unless, of course, that means a confectioner declines to participate in a gay wedding ceremony, in which case he must be stripped of his First Amendment rights, and he'll do it, and he'll like it, baby. Just relax and enjoy it. We will discuss Masterpiece Cakeshop, the Supreme Court, and why no only means no until hashtag love wins. Then, roaming Millennial and Amber Athey join the Panel of Deplorables to discuss what the resignation of John Conyers tells us about Democrats' strategy, the Supreme Court's upholding of Trump's travel ban, and the joyful post-Michelle Obama return of 1% chocolate milk to school lunches. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments on Masterpiece Cakeshop v. Colorado Civil Rights Commission. This is the famous Christian Baker gay wedding case that you've heard about for years. If the Supreme Court hasn't totally given itself over to nonsense on the First Amendment, the Baker, Jack Phillips, will win this case. And there's actually good reason to be hopeful for free speech and religious liberty here. This Supreme Court has been generally excellent on First Amendment issues, Citizens United, obviously. The fear is that Anthony Kennedy showed us in the Obergefell decision, that when it comes to gay marriage, he stops thinking like a lawyer and starts writing like a lyrical 19th century poet. In that case, he found a right to intimacy somewhere in the Constitution, which seems that it doesn't jibe that well with the hashtag #MeToo climate, does it? If there were a constitutional right to intimacy, then Harvey Weinstein would get off scot-free. Kevin Spacey, Al Franken, Roy Moore even. He'd be seated immediately. The right to intimacy is obviously ridiculous. I think Scalia said at the time that the right to intimacy isn't found in marriage. Also, by the way, ask the nearest hippie. How I miss that man. It's ridiculous, but that said, the court's swing vote, Justice Kennedy, has been pretty good on free speech, so we'll see where he falls here. Religious liberty and free speech, by the way, would not have had a shot of winning the day had President Trump not won the presidency and appointed Neil Gorsuch to the bench. If Hillary had won, this case would be over already. We wouldn't be talking about it. So thank you to America for electing Donald Trump, and also to Mitch McConnell, who doesn't get enough credit for this. Mitch McConnell staved off the Democrat hordes who were clamoring to put Merrick Garland on the bench just after Justice Scalia died. So, to the merits of the case. There's a lot of fake news out there, so let's break down what we know. In 2012, before Colorado redefined marriage to include monogamous same-sex unions, a Colorado gay couple, Charlie Craig and David Mullins, ordered a custom wedding cake from Jack Phillips's boutique, Masterpiece Cakeshop. Phillips, a devoted Christian, declined the order because his religious beliefs prevented him from participating in it by lending his artistic services to gay wedding ceremonies. His religious beliefs also prevent him from making custom cakes for lewd bachelor parties, divorce parties, and Halloween. He won't make a custom cake for Halloween. Those are his religious beliefs. This is his artistic cake shop. The couple, he explained, was free to choose from any of the generic cakes for their ceremony, but he wouldn't create a custom piece for the event. So what happened? Craig and Mullins went to one of the other countless cake shops and they got their cake made for their ceremony. There are apparently plenty of cake shops that are willing to bake cakes for gay wedding ceremonies.
We're anticipating probably a 30% boost in revenue this year from gay wedding cakes alone.
30% boost, yeah. There are all these new ceremonies. Every other cake shop is willing to do it. Some people are owned by devoted Christians or Muslims or whatever, and they have these religious beliefs, and they don't want to participate in the wedding and lend their artistic expression to it. Problem solved, right? Apparently not. Because Craig and Mullins decided to make it their mission to force Phillips to craft the gay marriage cake or else to shut down his store, to lose all his business. They filed a complaint with the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. They claimed discrimination. The case has now made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they just heard oral arguments this morning. We should make this point very clear. This case has very little to do with gay marriage. It has very little to do with gay marriage per se. Gavin McInnes said he used to support gay marriage until he realized that it was mostly a political act to screw with Christians. And cases like this are where Gavin got that idea from. George Will, too, by the way, thinks the Supreme Court should side with the state and make Phillips craft the cake. A lot of conservatives, the conservatives who are like conservatives, but not that kind of conservative, the ones who are, I'm a Republican, but I don't like any Republican stuff. They insist it doesn't matter, who cares, it's just a cake. It's so trivial, it's just make the cake. The left is obviously making the same point.
Republicans are terrified of gay wedding cakes for some reason. They say people can't help who or what they fear, but let's be honest, being afraid of a gay wedding cake is a choice.
Oh, they're afraid, isn't that? They're just afraid, you silly people. So it doesn't matter. Well, okay, if it doesn't matter, then drop the complaint. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It's a silly case. Okay, good. Then you back down. If then the other side in the culture war can back down. Then drop the suit. If it doesn't matter, just go to another cake shop. Actually, the couple did go to another cake shop, but they know that the cake matters. The cake does matter because it's a symbol and it's a mechanism of coercion. Who gets to decide how you use your artistic talents? You, your conscience, or the government? Who gets to decide which messages are optional and which are compulsory? George Will is either being obtuse here or he's missing the point. He claimed in his column on the subject that the primary purpose of cake is to be eaten. Sure, right, that's the primary purpose of cake. But wedding cake is different than regular old cake. That's why regular old cake costs $11 and wedding cakes cost into the thousands of dollars. I know this now. I'm looking at wedding cakes. Nobody has turned me down yet because my money is green. As Princeton professor Robbie George rightly points out in today's New York Times, a former newspaper, wedding cakes are the centerpieces of weddings. And that's why we have. They symbolize an idea, namely that a wedding, a marriage has begun. Some people don't believe that that is the case when it comes to same-sex monogamous unions. The state has no right to force an individual into expressing an idea with which he disagrees, even if that idea has been adopted as the official state line as of like 5 minutes ago. This is the other aspect of insanity in this case. Until the day before yesterday, nobody would have fathomed redefining marriage to include same-sex unions. Now, that which is not forbidden is compulsory. And by that light, it's not so bizarre that this whole case, which is really about compulsion and free speech, it centers on whether or not an individual is required by law to express so recent, so utterly novel an idea as gay marriage. It isn't about gay marriage. It's about the state and the culture warrior left flexing its muscles and pounding individual liberty and conscience into submission. So some claim that a ruling in favor of religious liberty and free speech, a ruling in favor of Masterpiece Cakeshop and Jack Phillips, that will destroy all sorts of anti-discrimination legislation in the country. But there is no evidence for that. As the cake shop's lawyers, Phillips himself, have made clear, the custom cake is an artistic piece that clearly comes along with free artistic and philosophical expression. That's why they're so expensive. That's why the bakery is called Masterpiece Cakeshop. It's not called Commodity Cake Shop or Food Cake Shop or regular old $10 cake shop. It's a masterpiece. It involves artistic expression. By the way, it is also ironic that the left, which has degraded and deconstructed art so much that now, a tricycle on top of a newspaper is art, or a giant block in a park or a smear of color on a wall, that sort of thing. Now those people are telling us that confections delicately crafted to be exhibited at the centerpiece of wedding ceremonies, masterpieces, those are not art. But that is neither here nor there. The point is that it isn't discrimination. It isn't that the artist can choose which customers he will serve. If, hopefully, the Supreme Court rules in favor of religious liberty here, it's not that the artist can say, I'm going to sell to you but not sell to you. The artist has to sell cakes to everybody, as he repeatedly offered to do in this case. The portrait photographer has to take photos of everybody. The painter has to paint paintings of everybody. But these artists don't need to convey ideas with which they disagree. A Christian painter is not required by law to paint an image of Satan stomping on the head of Christ. A Christian photographer is not required by law or the Constitution to recreate the piss Christ. Consider the reverse, actually. To drive the point home with not so subtle a brush, there's an evangelical pastor named Joshua Fierstein, I think. He called a Florida-based bakery that calls itself LGBT-friendly. He called it up and ordered a cake decorated with the phrase, quote, "We do not support gay marriage." Now, as you might expect, and as Fierstein expected, the bakery hung up. That's entirely their right. They didn't want to express that idea with their art. They have every right, moral and constitutional, to refuse to express certain ideas in art. Anti-discrimination laws entitle you to an artist's products, but not to their creativity. The left now insists on this schizophrenic argument. Freedom of choice and consent are the essential prerequisites of modern life until you contradict their ever-changing orthodoxy. Because hashtag MeToo only matters until hashtag love wins. Speaking of love winning, let's bring on our panel. We have a lovely all-lady panel of deplorables today, Roaming Millennial and Amber Athey. Roaming, does this matter? Or am I just an insane culture warrior reading too much into cakes? Hold on, I can ignore it. Don't acknowledge it. Anyway. Soundboard's down below, Michael. If I pan back to you, Michael, do you want to stall a little bit? Roaming, I have a terrible confession to make. My audio is cut out and I didn't hear, I was just looking at you. I was so dazed by your beauty that I didn't hear that. So we're going to try to get the sound back up. In the meantime, let's cut over to Amber and see if we can hear you. Who is going to win on this issue? They're both down. I can't hear either of them. Oh, this is awful. Well, at least I will ask this. So the sound is down. We're going to try to get the sound back up. In the meantime, can we at least get my panel of deplorables there to give me inspiration, artistic inspiration, as we talk about this a little bit? Because the issue, I think, strikes a lot of millennial conservatives as well. This is this question of why do we have to fight this battle? I don't want to fight this battle. It's so, you can talk about low taxes, you can talk about healthcare, you can talk about this, you can talk about that, but you can't talk about gay marriage. That is the cultural turning point today. I guess now that's turning toward transgenderism. And so that's all that matters. This is an issue that affects not a lot of people. It wouldn't be a big deal if it weren't used as a political cudgel, as if small groups of people weren't weaponized by the left as a political cudgel against the rule of law and freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Now, what this is really going to come down to is Anthony Kennedy. And it's going to split him in two. He is at the center of this issue. So on the one hand, he's been excellent on free speech. On the other hand, it seems that all he cares about is gay marriage. In his difficult and stupid decision, an opinion on Obergefell, which Antonin Scalia eviscerated in his dissent, he made the claim. He didn't really make much of a constitutional claim. He just said there's a right to intimacy, and we have to do this. And you can see his activist streak coming back at him. That said, this issue is exactly about freedom of speech and about gay rights and about kind of the culture warrior left. So I don't know which way he's going to go. He's been unreliable ever since he's been on the bench, and we can only hope, but it'll come down to him. It's just one vote. So I am going to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, but before I do that, I have got to tell you folks, our third episode of The Conversation is coming up on Tuesday, December 12th at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, featuring the one and only Ben Shapiro, the boss man himself, the slayer of leftist snowflakes. So subscribe today to be a part of the conversation and ask Ben live questions, which he will answer for everyone to hear. Now, Ben's episode of The Conversation will stream live on the Ben Shapiro Facebook page and the Daily Wire YouTube channel, and it will be free for everyone to watch, but only subscribers can ask the questions. To ask a question as a subscriber, log into our website, dailywire.com, head over to the Conversation page to watch the live stream. After that, just start typing into the Daily Wire chat box, where Ben will answer questions in the order they are entered into the live feed for an entire hour. Once again, subscribe to get your questions answered by Ben Tuesday, December 12th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific to join the conversation. Now, while you're over there, what else are you going to get if you subscribe? If you get an annual membership, that's just $100 a year. It's $10 a month, or annual is $100 a year. You get me, you get the Andrew Klavan Show, you get the Ben Shapiro Show, blah, blah, blah. but you get the Leftist Tears tumbler, folks. This is going to be very important, especially depending on what the Supreme Court does in this in this important case. So if those cakes are allowed to be made with artistic freedom of choice, you are going to need this to collect all of the salty runoff. Go to dailywire.com to do that. And before we say goodbye, I do need to thank one of our sponsors. They help keep Covfefe all in our cup. They help keep the lights on. They've helped us to decorate with all of this lovely Christmas decorations and the hashtag #MeToo mistletoe back there. So we have to talk about Policy Genius. This actually matters. People may not have run into dealing with life insurance before or the absence of life insurance. It's really important. If you're an adult, especially one with kids, you know that you need it. But it's so easy to put off. Now, shopping for life insurance is confusing. It takes forever. I really didn't do it until someone spelled it out for me. And very often you have to speak to an agent just to get a quote. Policy Genius lets you skip all of that. It lets you compare life insurance from the top providers online. It takes as little as 5 minutes. I am a millennial. I don't do anything that takes longer than 5 minutes, and you can't do it online. So if you're busy, 1 minute per day for 5 days, 30 seconds per day for somewhere between 9 and 11 days. If you find a policy you like and you want to know more, you can talk to any one of their licensed experts. Me, I don't enjoy talking to people. When Marshall starts speaking to me, even in the earbud or after the show, I just stone face right ahead. I won't even look at him. But if you're just browsing, you don't have to talk to anyone. That's what I really enjoy. Browse away. They also don't just do life insurance. You can get disability insurance, renter's insurance, pet insurance. You can compare health insurance. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'll put off life insurance. It doesn't matter. It really matters. It can seriously affect your family. Don't be stupid. Just do it. It doesn't take very, very long, and it's pretty inexpensive. If you need life insurance but you're putting it off, try Policy Genius. Compare it online on your own terms in your own time. PolicyGenius.com. Because you should only be forced to speak to an agent if you've committed a federal crime, and I should never be forced to speak to Marshall. So go over to Policy Genius and also go to dailywire.com if you want to watch the rest of the show. That's the only way you're going to hear from the lovely, brilliant, all-female panel of deplorables, Amber Athey and Roaming Millennial. We'll be right back. dailywire.com.